The morning sun rose over the mining colony on Kepler 442b, just like it had for the past 18 months. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of his ship, the Horizon, watching the busy activity below. The human settlement looked peaceful, from orbit. Small buildings dotted the landscape while mining trucks moved between the extraction sites and processing centers. Jake had been making supply runs to this colony since it started. He knew most of the people down there. There was Danny Price, the chief engineer who always complained about broken equipment, but somehow kept everything running. There was Lisa Park, who worked communications and never missed sending her weekly messages back to Earth. Nearly 3,000 humans called this place home now. The peace shattered at exactly 9:47 local time. Long-range sensors screamed warnings as 7 ships dropped out of hyperspace. Jake recognized the design immediately. Zephyrian raiders. The reptilian species had been attacking frontier settlements for decades, taking what they wanted and leaving destruction behind. "Captain, we're picking up weapons signatures," called out his sensor operator, a young man named Tim Brooks. Multiple plasma cannons charging up. Jake grabbed the communications console. "Colony Control, this is the Horizon. You have hostile ships incoming. 7 Zephyrian cruisers just arrived in system." The voice that answered belonged to Danny Price. "We see them, Jake. Activating defense grid now." The colony's defensive systems came online. Energy shields flickered to life over the main settlement. Point defense turrets rose from hidden positions. It looked impressive, but Jake knew it would not be enough. The defense grid was built to handle asteroids and solar storms, not military attack. The first Zephyrian plasma blast hit the main shield generator. The protective barrier lasted less than 30 seconds before collapsing in a shower of sparks. The second blast destroyed the communications tower. The third hit the main power plant. "They're targeting infrastructure first," Tim reported. "Classic raider tactics. They want the colony intact for looting." Jake watched in horror as the systematic destruction continued. The Zephyrians knew exactly what they were doing. They had done this before, many times. The defense turrets fired desperately, but their shots bounced harmlessly off the raiders' military-grade shields. Within 10 minutes, all organized resistance stopped. The colony lay helpless under the guns of 7 warships. "Jake, are you still there?" Danny's voice came through on emergency frequencies. "They're landing troops now. We're evacuating civilians to the mining tunnels." "How many people can you hide?" "Maybe 200 if we're lucky. The rest?" Danny's voice trailed off. Jake did the math. Nearly 3,000 colonists, and they could hide maybe 200. The Zephyrians would capture the rest. Some would be sold as slaves. Others would be killed for sport. That was how the raiders operated. "Send out the distress beacon," Jake ordered his communications officer, Lisa Park. She was the sister of the Lisa Park down on the colony. They had both volunteered for frontier duty together. "Broadcasting on all frequencies," Lisa confirmed. Her voice stayed steady, but Jake could see tears in her eyes. "Emergency channels, civilian bands, military frequencies. Everyone in the sector will hear it." The message was simple. Human colony under attack. Immediate assistance required. Coordinates attached. The beacon would travel through subspace networks, reaching dozens of civilized worlds within hours. But Jake knew the reality. The Galactic Council moved slowly. By the time they finished debating and sent help, the raiders would be long gone. The colonists would be dead or worse. On the planet below, Zephyrian landing craft touched down near the main settlement. Reptilian soldiers in combat armor spread out through the streets. They moved with practiced efficiency, herding surviving humans into groups. Jake could see the fear on colonist faces through his ship's telescopes. "Captain, should we try to help?" asked Tim. "We have some cargo shuttles. Maybe we could evacuate some people." Jake wanted to say yes. Every instinct told him to fight, to do something, anything to help. But the Horizon was a civilian transport, 15 crew members and no weapons. The Zephyrian ships would destroy them in seconds. "We stay in orbit and keep broadcasting," he decided. "If we get ourselves killed, no one will know what happened here." The next few hours were the longest of Jake's life. He watched Zephyrian soldiers search building after building. Sometimes they found hidden colonists. Sometimes those colonists tried to run. The soldiers did not hesitate to shoot. Danny Price managed to get through on emergency frequencies every few hours. "We have maybe 150 people hidden in the deep mining shafts," he reported. "But they're getting closer. Found the entrance to Tunnel 7 an hour ago. How long can you hold out? Maybe 2 days if we're lucky. Food and water are running low, and they're bringing in mining equipment now, probably planning to flood the tunnels or use gas." Jake felt sick. These were not soldiers or criminals. They were farmers, miners, engineers, teachers, ordinary people who had come to build a new life on a distant world. They deserved better than this. "Keep transmitting the distress signal," he told Lisa. "Someone has to hear us. Someone has to care." But even as he said it, Jake wondered if help would come in time. The galaxy was a big place, and frontier colonies were often on their own. The Galactic Council talked about protecting civilians, but they moved too slowly when people needed help fast. What Jake did not know was that the distress signal had already traveled farther than he imagined. Beyond the civilized worlds of the Galactic Council and the dark spaces between stars, something had been listening to human communications for years, learning their languages, studying their culture, waiting for the right moment. The help that was coming would not be what anyone expected, but it was coming, and when it arrived, the entire galaxy would learn something new about humanity, something that would change everything. 3 days passed before the Galactic Council gathered on Nexus Prime. The massive space station orbited a blue star at the center of known space. Representatives from 47 different species worked in the Great Assembly Hall, but they did not move quickly when people needed help. Ambassador Veltar of the Centaurian Republic stood at the speaking platform. His crystal-like body caught the light as he read the human distress message aloud. His voice echoed through the vast chamber, where hundreds of delegates listened. "The situation on Kepler 442b requires immediate action," said Counselor Zara Kim. She was the human representative to the Council, chosen from the merchant colonies near Earth. Her voice carried worry as new reports came in about the dying colony. But the Council moved the way it always moved, slowly, carefully, with lots of talking and not much doing. The Altarian delegate raised his 4 arms to speak. "This colony lies in disputed space. Do we have the right to send forces there? The Zephyrians might claim salvage rights under Section 42 of the Trade Accords." The Vegan representative agreed. "My people have had problems with the Zephyrians too, but if we act without following proper procedures, we could start a war." Hours turned into days. The delegates talked about jurisdiction and trade laws and territorial disputes. They formed committees to study the problem. They scheduled more meetings to discuss the committees. Meanwhile, humans were dying on a distant world. Zara Kim stood up again and again, pleading for action. "These are civilians, farmers and miners and teachers. They have no weapons, no military training. Every hour we wait, more people die." But the other delegates had their own concerns. The Draconian Empire worried about setting bad precedents. The Silicon Collective wanted guarantees about mining rights. The Aquatic Federation questioned whether land-based colonies deserved the same protection as water worlds. Back on Kepler 442b, the situation got worse every hour. Danny Price had managed to keep some colonists hidden in the deep mining tunnels, but the Zephyrians were getting smarter. They brought in thermal scanners to detect body heat. They pumped smoke into some tunnels to force people out. "We lost Tunnel 6 yesterday," Danny reported to Jake Morrison during one of their brief communications. 23 people. "The Zephyrians are getting better at finding us." Jake floated in orbit above the planet, watching through his telescopes, as more Zephyrian ships arrived. Not warships this time, but cargo vessels. They were getting ready to take everything valuable and leave. "How many people do you still have hidden?" Jake asked. "Maybe 120. We started with nearly 200, but..." Danny's voice faded. He did not need to finish the sentence. Jake's crew was getting restless. His pilot, a woman named Carol Reed, kept asking why they did not try to help. His engineer, Bob Hayes, suggested they could modify the cargo shuttles to carry more people. "We're not soldiers," Jake reminded them. "We have no weapons, no armor, no training. Those Zephyrian ships would destroy us in seconds." But saying the words did not make Jake feel better. He knew these people. He had carried supplies to their homes, shared meals with their families, listened to their dreams about building something new on this world. Now he could only watch as those dreams died. The Zephyrians worked with cold efficiency. They stripped the power plants of valuable components. They loaded trucks with refined metals from the processing centers. They took everything that could be sold on the black market. The captured colonists were sorted into groups. The young and healthy went to slave ships. The old and sick were left behind. Jake did not want to think about what would happen to them. When the raiders finished looting, on the fourth day something changed. Jake's sensor operator Tim Brooks noticed it first. "Captain, I'm picking up some strange energy readings. Long-range sensors show something big coming this way." Jake studied the displays. Multiple contacts approaching from deep space. The energy signatures were massive, but they did not match anything in the ship's database. "Are they council ships?" Jake asked. "I don't think so. The design patterns are all wrong. And they're coming from the wrong direction. Council forces would approach from the core worlds, not from the outer rim." The mysterious ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Jake counted them as they appeared. 5 ships, then 10, then 20. They kept coming until 47 vessels hung in space like dark monuments. "Lisa, are you getting any identification signals?" Jake asked his communications officer. "Nothing, Captain. They're not broadcasting on any known frequencies. I've tried every channel in the database." The newcomers were unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The ships were huge, angular things that seemed to eat light instead of reflecting it. They moved with purpose but without hurry, taking positions around the planet. "Try hailing them," Jake ordered. Lisa sent messages on every frequency she could think of. Emergency channels, diplomatic frequencies, even old military codes. The dark ships did not answer. "Maybe they can't understand us," Tim suggested. "Could be a species we've never met before." But Jake had a different feeling. These ships moved too precisely, positioned themselves too carefully. Someone was in command, someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The Zephyrian fleet noticed the newcomers too. General Carthan, the raider commander, sent warnings to the dark ships. He ordered them to leave the system immediately. The mysterious vessels did not respond. Instead, they began to move. Not toward the Zephyrian ships, but into attack positions around them. The dark fleet spread out like hunters surrounding prey. "Captain," Tim said quietly, "I think we're about to see a fight." Jake gripped his chair as the two fleets faced each other in the darkness above Kepler 442b. The colonists hiding in the tunnels below had no idea that help had finally arrived. But Jake suspected that when the shooting started, the galaxy would learn something new about war, something that would change everything. The dark ships did not waste time with words. They spoke with action instead. Admiral Beth Cole stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical displays show enemy positions. Her weathered face showed no emotion as she studied the Zephyrian fleet. 7 raider ships against 47 human vessels. The numbers told the story, but Beth had learned long ago that numbers were not everything in war. "Weapons status," she asked her tactical officer, Lieutenant Ryan Fox. "All ships report ready, Admiral. Kinetic batteries loaded and targeted, railguns charged, nuclear warheads armed and ready." Beth nodded. The Terran Defense Coalition had spent decades preparing for this moment. Not this exact battle, but something like it. The moment when humanity would have to show the galaxy what they had become in the darkness between stars. "Target their engines first," Beth ordered. "I want prisoners to question. Dead raiders tell us nothing useful." The Zephyrian fleet was preparing to leave the system with their stolen cargo and captured humans. General Carthan had filled his ships with everything valuable from the colony. Metals, equipment, and nearly 3,000 human prisoners packed into cargo holds like animals. The general had sent warnings to the mysterious dark ships, ordering them to leave immediately. When the strangers did not respond, he assumed they were scavengers hoping to steal some of his prize. He had dealt with scavengers before. He was about to learn the difference between scavengers and predators. The first kinetic round hit the Zephyrian flagship's engine section at 30% of light speed. The tungsten rod, no bigger than a telephone pole, punched through military-grade armor like it was paper. The ship's main drive exploded in a ball of plasma. "What was that?" General Carthan demanded, as his ship shook from the impact. "Report!" His weapons officer, a scarred veteran named Sub-Commander Vex, studied his instruments with growing alarm. "Unknown weapons, General, not energy-based, some kind of physical projectile traveling at impossible speeds." The second shot disabled the flagship's weapon systems. The third took out their communications array. Within 60 seconds, the most powerful ship in the Zephyrian fleet was dead in space. The other raider ships tried to fight back. Plasma cannons fired at the dark vessels, but the human ships moved like they knew where every shot would go. They slipped between plasma bolts and missile salvos like dancers avoiding raindrops. "How are they doing that?" Vex asked as another volley missed completely. The answer was simple but terrifying. The Coalition had been watching Zephyrian tactics for 50 years. They knew how the raiders moved, how they fought, how they thought. Every battle the Zephyrians had ever fought was studied and analyzed by human strategists. The raiders were fighting an enemy that had learned all their secrets. One by one, the Zephyrian ships fell silent. Not destroyed, but disabled with surgical precision. Engines gone, weapons offline, communications dead. The human fleet surrounded them like wolves around wounded prey. Then Admiral Cole opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian flagship. General Carthan appeared on the main screen, his scaled face showing confusion and growing fear. Behind him, his bridge crew worked frantically at smoking control panels. "I am Admiral Beth Cole of the Terran Defense Coalition," she said. Her voice was calm and cold. "You have attacked human civilians. Under our laws, this means war." The Zephyrian general tried to recover his dignity. "I am General Carthan of the Zephyrian Raider Fleet. We acted within accepted parameters of salvage law. The colony was undefended and in disputed space. The Galactic Council recognizes our right to claim abandoned settlements. Your laws do not apply to us," Cole replied. "We never signed your treaties. We do not recognize your council's authority. And we certainly do not accept your excuses for murdering our people." Carthan's eyes narrowed. "You cannot be human. The humans are weak traders and miners. They have no warships, no military force. Who are you, really?" Cole smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We are what humans become when you push us too far. We are what happens when you leave our people to die while politicians debate and bureaucrats delay." She gestured to someone off-screen. "Begin the interrogation." What happened next would be recorded in Council archives as humanity's first demonstration of what they called enhanced questioning techniques. The Zephyrians discovered that humans had very creative ideas about extracting information from people who hurt their families. Jake Morrison watched from his ship's bridge as Coalition vessels surrounded each disabled raider. He saw boarding, pods attached to Zephyrian hulls like parasites. Through his telescopes, he could see human soldiers in black armor moving through enemy ships with mechanical efficiency. "Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from the surface," Lisa Park reported. "Danny Price is trying to reach us." "Put him through." Danny's voice crackled with static and emotion. "Jake, something's happening up there. The Zephyrian troops are getting orders to return to their ships immediately. They're abandoning their positions and running for the landing craft." Jake understood. The Coalition had not just defeated the Raider fleet, they had captured it intact. Every communication channel, every computer system, every piece of data about Zephyrian operations was now in human hands. "Danny, get your people ready to come out of hiding. I think the cavalry has finally arrived." But even as he said it, Jake wondered what kind of cavalry this was. The ships surrounding the planet were unlike anything he had ever seen. The humans operating them moved with cold precision that spoke of long preparation and careful planning. Admiral Cole's voice echoed across open channels as she addressed not just the captured raiders, but every monitoring station within light years. "This is Admiral Beth Cole of the Terran Defense Coalition. We are broadcasting this message to all civilized species in the galaxy. Today you have seen what happens when humans are pushed beyond their limits. We do not seek war, but we are prepared for it in ways you cannot imagine. She paused, letting her words sink in. Leave our people alone, and we will remain in the shadows where we belong. Touch our civilians again, and we will show you exactly what our species is capable of when we stop being civilized. The message traveled across subspace networks, reaching every major world in the galaxy within hours. The Galactic Council, still debating jurisdiction and procedures, suddenly found themselves facing a new reality. Humanity was not what they thought it was. News of the battle spread through subspace networks faster than the speed of light. Every monitoring station, every communications relay, every intelligence service in the galaxy received the same shocking report. An unknown human fleet had appeared at Kepler 442b and destroyed a Zephyrian raider squadron in less than 30 minutes. Captain Alex Turner commanded the Deep Space Monitoring Station Outpost 7, located on the edge of Council space. His job was to watch for threats coming from the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. He had been doing this work for 15 years and had never seen anything like the energy signatures his instruments detected. The ships came from beyond the outer rim, Turner reported to his superiors at Council Intelligence. We're talking about a fleet that traveled over 3,000 light-years to respond to that distress call. That kind of range suggests a massive support network we knew nothing about. The implications were staggering. The galaxy's intelligence services had cataloged every known human settlement. There were maybe 50 colonies scattered across a few hundred light-years of space. All of them were small, peaceful communities focused on mining or farming. None of them had military capabilities beyond basic defense systems, yet somehow, 47 warships had appeared from the void between galaxies to rescue 3,000 colonists. The mathematics did not work unless there were human populations and industrial bases that nobody knew about. Dr. Kate Sullivan was a xenoanthropologist working with the Council's research division. Her specialty was studying how different species developed their cultures and technologies. When the reports from Kepler 442b reached her desk, she immediately began analyzing every piece of data she could find. The tactical patterns are completely unknown, she explained to an emergency council session. These humans fight differently than any recorded species. They use kinetic weapons instead of energy beams. They disable rather than destroy. They capture prisoners for interrogation instead of simply killing enemies. The council chamber buzzed with nervous conversations. Representatives from dozens of species tried to understand what they were facing. The comfortable assumptions about humanity were crumbling with each new piece of information. Counselor Zara Kim stood at the speaking platform, her face pale with shock. She had spent 10 years representing human interests to the council. She thought she knew her own people. Now she was learning that she knew almost nothing. The ships identified themselves as the Terran Defense Coalition, she reported. I've never heard of this organization. According to our records, there is no such human government or military force. Ambassador Veltar of the Centaurian Republic asked the question everyone was thinking. If these humans have been hiding such powerful military capabilities, what else don't we know about them? The answer came from an unexpected source. The captured Zephyrian prisoners, under intensive questioning by coalition forces, revealed information that shocked even their human interrogators. General Carthen, stripped of his rank and dignity, sat in a detention cell aboard Admiral Cole's flagship. His scaled hands shook as he answered questions from a human intelligence officer named Captain Roy Clark. Your people have been watching us for decades, Carthen said. Every raid, every battle, every tactical decision, we found monitoring devices in the wreckage of ships we destroyed years ago. Human technology, but not from any known colony. Captain Clark made notes on his data pad. Tell me about the monitoring devices. Small, almost invisible. They recorded everything. Ship movements, weapon capabilities, communication frequencies. We thought they were Council intelligence gathering, but the technology was too advanced. The picture that emerged was both impressive and terrifying. While the known human colonies struggled to survive on frontier worlds, another branch of humanity had been building something else entirely in the darkness between stars. They had been watching, learning, and preparing for the day when their people would need protection. The Coalition's methodology was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Where other species sought to join galactic civilization, these, humans, had chosen isolation and self-reliance. They had studied every major conflict in the past century, analyzed every weakness in Council peacekeeping protocols, and built their entire society around a single principle. Never again would humans be left defenseless. Admiral Cole's background briefing to the Council revealed the scope of what they were dealing with. She spoke from the bridge of her flagship, her image transmitted to every major world in the galaxy. The Coalition represents human colonies that were abandoned during the early expansion period, she explained. When the first-generation ships left Earth, not all of them reached their intended destinations. Some were damaged by cosmic radiation. Others suffered mechanical failures. A few were attacked by hostile species. She paused, letting the implications sink in. The survivors of those failed colonies had a choice. They could give up and die, or they could adapt and survive. They chose survival. Over the past century, they built new homes in the void between galaxies. They developed technologies that don't appear in any Council database. They created a civilization dedicated to protecting human life wherever it might be found. The Council delegates listened in stunned silence as Cole continued. We didn't ask to be part of your galactic community. We don't want your trade agreements or your diplomatic protocols. But we have been listening to your communications, watching your politics, studying your wars. We know how you operate. We know your strengths and your weaknesses. Cole's expression hardened. Most importantly, we know that when humans are in danger, your Council talks while our people die. That ends now. From this day forward, any attack on human civilians will be considered an act of war against the Coalition. We will respond with overwhelming force, and we will not ask permission first. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy's leaders to contemplate a new reality. Humanity was not the scattered collection of peaceful traders they had catalogued. Somewhere in the darkness beyond known space, humans had built something that could challenge the established order. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted overnight, and nobody knew what would happen next. 6 months after the Kepler 442b incident, the galaxy had changed in ways that nobody could have predicted. The comfortable order that had existed for centuries was gone, replaced by something new and uncertain. President Sam Davis of the Terran Defense Coalition stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Retribution. Behind him, holographic displays showed the locations of Coalition fleets throughout the galaxy. 47 ships had responded to the distress call at Kepler 442b, but that was only a small fraction of humanity's true military strength. The Council had demanded a meeting, and Davis had agreed. Not because he recognized their authority, but because he wanted them to understand the new reality. The transmission would reach every major world in known space within hours. Members of the Galactic Council, Davis began, his voice calm and professional. I am President Sam Davis of the Terran Defense Coalition. You have requested information about our capabilities and intentions. I am here to provide that information. He gestured to the displays behind him, showing ship positions across dozens of star systems. For the past century, while you catalogued our people as weak traders and miners, we have been building something else. The Coalition represents over 200 human worlds in the void between galaxies. Our population exceeds 50 million people. Our industrial capacity rivals that of any major Council species. The numbers were staggering. Council intelligence had estimated the total human population at maybe 10 million, scattered across 50 small colonies. They had been off by a factor of 5, and the implications were terrifying. Davis continued his presentation with methodical precision. We have been watching your civilization for decades. We know the location of every major military installation, every trade route, every weakness in your defensive networks. We have studied how each of your species conducts warfare. We know your tactics, your technologies, your limitations. To prove his point, Davis ordered a demonstration that would be remembered as the most chilling display of military capability in galactic history. Coalition vessels appeared simultaneously in 12 major systems throughout Council space. Not to attack, but simply to prove they could. The ships bypassed early warning networks that had protected those systems for generations. They avoided patrol routes that military planners thought were secret. They positioned themselves within striking distance of critical infrastructure before announcing their presence to local authorities. Admiral Tony Clark, commanding the Coalition fleet at the Centaurian home system, sent a polite message to planetary defense forces. "Good morning. We are here to demonstrate that your defenses have significant vulnerabilities. Please note that we could have targeted your orbital shipyards, your communication satellites, or your government centers. Instead, we chose to simply say, hello." Similar messages went out from Coalition ships at 11 other major worlds. The effect was immediate and profound. Species that had considered themselves safe behind layers of defensive systems suddenly realized how exposed they actually were. President Davis let the implications sink in before continuing his address to the Council. "We could have destroyed your command centers, your industrial complexes, your population centers," he said matter-of-factly. "The fact that you are still alive to hear this message should tell you something about our intentions. We are not conquerors. We are not raiders. We are protectors." He paused, his expression hardening. "But make no mistake about our capabilities or our resolve. Our entire civilization exists for one purpose: protecting human life and human interests wherever they might be found. We have spent a century preparing for war, and we are very good at it." The Council's response was swift and unanimous. Within hours of Davis's demonstration, representatives from 47 species voted to grant humanity full protection under galactic law. Any attack on human settlements would be treated as an act of war against the entire Council. But the real change was not in legislation. It was in the collective consciousness of dozens of species who suddenly realized that the quiet traitors they had dismissed were connected to something far more dangerous. The effects rippled throughout the galaxy. Almost immediately, pirate fleets that had preyed on human shipping for decades suddenly found other targets. The notorious Black Star raiders, who had attacked 3 human colonies in the past year, disappeared from their usual hunting grounds overnight. Captain Jake Morrison, still making supply runs to frontier colonies, noticed the difference within weeks. Trade routes that had required armed escorts were now safe for civilian traffic. Pirates who had been bold enough to attack military convoys now fled at the first sign of human ships. "It's like magic," Jake told his crew after completing a routine supply run to a mining colony that had been hit by raiders 6 times in the past 2 years. "We didn't even see a hostile contact the entire trip." The reason was simple. Word had spread through criminal networks faster than official government channels. Attacking humans meant facing the Coalition, and nobody wanted that kind of attention. The Shadowfang Syndicate, one of the galaxy's largest criminal organizations, issued internal orders to all affiliated groups. Any operation targeting human interests was forbidden. The penalty for violation was death, no exceptions. Even legitimate military forces changed their behavior. The Draconian Empire, which had been expanding aggressively into frontier regions, suddenly showed new respect for territorial boundaries when humans were involved. General Rex Norton of the Coalition Defense Forces smiled as he read intelligence reports about Draconian fleet movements. "They're giving human colonies a 50-light-year buffer zone," he told his staff. 6 months ago, they were talking about claiming the entire sector. The psychological impact was even more important than the military one. For the first time in galactic history, predators were afraid of their prey. Species that had built their entire cultures around conquest and expansion suddenly had to consider the possibility of facing an enemy that had been preparing specifically to fight them. Dr. Kate Sullivan, the xenoanthropologist who had first analyzed Coalition tactics, published a research paper that became required reading at military academies throughout the galaxy. "Humanity represents a new type of civilization," she wrote. "They have abandoned the traditional model of seeking integration with galactic society. Instead, they have chosen isolation, self-reliance, and overwhelming preparedness. The result is a species that appears weak individually, but possesses collective strength that rivals any major power. Her conclusion was both simple and profound. The galaxy has learned that humanity's greatest strength is not their technology or their tactics. It is their absolute refusal to abandon their own, regardless of cost, distance, or odds. Years later, historians would mark the Kepler 442b incident as the moment when the balance of galactic power shifted forever. The SOS signal from a small, mining colony had revealed something that changed everything. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, humans had been preparing for war, and they were very, very good at it.